Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, we're going into the world of Sens prospects. Next week, we're counting down the top 10. Today, we're looking at some that just missed the cut.
We have 8 honorable mention guys, 3 forwards, 4 defensemen, and of course, a Tendy.
Couldn't leave out a Tendy. Plus, we'll get to another member of a Sens ownership consortium. All of it's brought to you by Bird Dogs, brand new sponsor. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. And when you enter the promo code LockedOnNHL, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 802 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. Please like and subscribe wherever you download your podcasts, including on YouTube, where you can also leave a comment below. Today's comment, we want to know who your favorite Sens prospect is. Not who you think is the best, but who is your favorite? Who would you have the most fun watching succeed in the NHL? Today is Friday, May 19th, and Pilsy, shocking news. Another name has been thrown in the hat to Nico Sparks' consortium to buy the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, the list continues to grow, and when you're trying to compile $1 billion worth of money to put towards buying a team, I guess why not get as much help as you can? But at this point, it's almost a joke. Like who is going to be involved next? Who knows? And
King Charles.
Yeah, King Charles, get him in the mix there. But the thing is, too, I thought the bids were already done. I thought everything was already in on the table. So why are new people being added? Again, we are not business journalists. I don't understand half of this stuff, but I thought this would be more exciting, but now it's almost kind of nauseating. It's like, all right, we get it.
I almost fell asleep doing the intro when I had to mention it. So let's get to Sens prospects. That's what people care about right now. Hopefully we have an answer. Monday, up in the air right now. It's a long week. I think we'll be good to go for Monday, though, especially if we get news on the ownership. So we took our little PD day last Friday. We'll be back on Monday.
I didn't even think of taking Monday off, Ross.
And why would you? It's the May 2-4 weekend, but we got big news coming down the pipeline next week. We expect to know who the preferred bidder is to win the Ottawa Senators. I said preferred bidder, and immediately I got the shakes because the Senators were named the preferred bidders at LeBreton in 2016, and that didn't get done. But hey, I think positive vibes. We will know next week the next owner of the Ottawa Senators. All right, Pilsy. We will also know next week who the Sens Central top 10 prospects are for the Ottawa Senators, and we really want to start with a prospect in particular for today's honorable mentions because he could very well be in the top 10. I decided because he's going to be 24 when the season starts that we're going to leave him off the top 10. But I think this guy is going to be knocking on the door for an NHL roster spot. And Pilsy, I will guarantee that Angus Crookshank plays his first NHL game next season.
Wow, that's a great guarantee, and I would love to see it, especially Ross. This guy has gone through a lot. If you guys listened to our interview with David Bell, if you haven't, go check it out. Must listen if you want to know who the man behind David Bell is. But he talked about Crooker and Crooker's work ethic because that rehab that he had to go through was not your typical rehab. It took a long time and kind of, I don't want to say no end in sight, but it's not like it was like, yeah, you're going to be playing hockey soon. No, you're looking at months and close to a full year worth of rehab and recovery before you can play hockey. So definitely a lot of perseverance, and you see the passion from Crooker, but he got to get in the mix for a bunch of games, 71 games with Belleville, 26 goals, 21 assists, and it was a great year for Angus Crookshank. And we've talked about it, Ross, in my opinion, there's an open spot as a winger on the third line of the Ottawa Senators. and he's right in the mix of top candidates for it because he adds so much that a third line could really use.
So with Angus Crookshank, 71 games, that's all but one. So you talk about Shane Pinto coming back from a season-long injury and being able to play all 82. Angus basically did the AHL equivalent. 71 out of 72 games. He finished fourth among AHL rookies in goals with 26 and ninth in points with 47. So clearly he's making his impact known at the AHL level. I should also throw in second in shots on goal. And when we talk to Igor, it's always around the net with Angus. When you're playing on Angus Crookshank's line, you put pucks on net and you know that he is going to do the dirty work right in front of the net and bang away and make sure that he's doing everything he can. Compete level is off the charts with this kid, and I believe that he is going to take that next step. So we wanted to get Angus out of the way early. I'll pull up here. We've got a nice card here, and just a guy who you want to have around the team as well. I got to meet him a few times there in Manitoba when he came in. Just a great guy, and we're cheering for him to do the best he can. You look at the plus minus, and that's where we direct you to Dave Bell's interview. It was getting away from him mid-season. They reset around Christmas, and he had really improved in the second half. So I think big things are coming for Angus Crookshank. I believe in the style that he plays is going to be successful at the next level. And he's got this prove it year, man. Last year of his entry-level contract. So I'm expecting big things from Angus Crookshank.
Yeah, me too. I think he's going to be, for most of the year, he's going to be a staple in the top six in Belleville. And then, like you mentioned, hopefully he can kind of force the Sens' hand and have them call him up to play in Ottawa, because I think he provides a grittiness with a scoring touch that can really help out the bottom six.
Let's keep him by himself, because I don't think that he should be in the same breath as the other prospects who are either just up and coming and maybe they'll sneak into the top 10 next year, or guys who are kind of out of sight, out of mind overseas. That's a lot of what this list is, but I think Angus should have his own little segment because of where he is in his development curve and what we think the future holds from him immediately as soon as next year. So let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to chat about Stephen Halliday, the Disher, and a couple other Belleville Senators, from Max Guenette to Kevin Mandolese, and then we'll look around the OHL and the overseas leagues. That's all coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our new friends over at Bird Dogs, and I'm not kidding when I say I'm obsessed with these new shorts, Ross. I'm wearing them again, second day in a row. I mean, they're just so comfy. They fit for any occasion. They look great. They feel great. And plus, Bird Dogs is just fun to say. Like we were just chatting and just tossing out a quick Bird Dogs is just rolls off the tongue nicely. But the three most important things about Bird Dogs: you can get pants, shorts for men there. The fit, I already said it. I love the fit. They look so good. I got the 7-inch cut, Ross. I don't know. Did you go with the 6, 7, or 9?
9.
The 9-inch, so you get a little more coverage there. I like to get a little sun on the knees during the summer, so I'm hoping to get a little extra tan there. So I went with the 7. And the comfort. That's honestly the number one part of these shorts. That mesh line, well, it's not really mesh. That lining, it's like a stretchy lining that they have in the shorts, really is very comfortable and allows for any kind of activity, whether it's like you're out for a run, a jog, a hike, whatever. It's good. And that goes to the versatility. You can wear them wherever you want. We're not the only fans of this. Everyone loves Bird Dogs that try them, and you're going to love them too. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL, and you can enter promo code LockedOnNHL, and you're going to get a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. So guys, check it out. Bird Dogs.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Owl & Co Grooming. Cuckoo! Is that an owl sound? Maybe I'm off, but we know.
Ooh.
Oh, well, here's a crazy thought. What if you could find an amazing grooming product and combine next level nourishment with a side of incredibly long lasting scent? Well, think no more. Say hello to Owl & Co Grooming, founded by one of our own in Ottawa. Chris St. Clair, big time Ottawa Senators fan, born and raised from Ottawa. And he knows that when you want to take care of an epic beard, you need to go to Owl and Co Grooming. If you're a woman, you want to make your hair look healthy and nourished, go there as well. The starting lineup includes hair tonics, sea salt sprays, and utility balms. All the products are made with natural ingredients like coconut oil and sweet almond oil. It ensures that your skin is getting all the nourishment that it needs. It's made by hand in small batches, no cutting corners, so go outside your comfort zone and start with these products every morning. You'll see that creating a grooming routine doesn't have to be something that brings you down. In no time, you can actually look forward to it. Go to owlandcogrooming.com right now and follow them on Instagram as well, Owl and Co Grooming. Let them know Locked On Senators sent you, and you can do that by using our promo code Senators15 at checkout, and you'll get 15% off your next order. We know you're going to love it. Can't wait for you to try it. Let us know what your experience is like with Owl and Co. Go check them out, owlandcogrooming.com. All right, Pillsy, I can't believe I messed up the sound of an owl.
Yeah, you're a little off there. Yeah.
Like, it's not even a tough animal. Like, everyone knows. Woohoo!
Yeah, it's a classic one. Also, I want to comment on, I love how you always got your prop of a permanent marker in your hand. Every episode, you got the permanent marker in your hand. I feel like that's just old radio producer, because all the producers at TSN always use Sharpies, and you're circling the next thing, crossing it off, doing check marks or whatever. So good thing you're wearing all black, because there's probably going to be permanent marker streaks all over the way you're swinging that thing around.
I use it to fiddle. I don't even like open it.
Yeah.
God forbid I write down a note once in a while.
Yeah, imagine.
No, I can't. I really can't. I also have a smoke detector while we're talking about props. This kept beeping this morning, so I had to do that. That's probably not safe. Tape measure. We could play all these props on my desk. We could do
Only thing I have is the Owl and Co right here.
Oh, I love it. All right, let's continue on with a friend of the show up next. And this was an up, down, side to side year for Kevin Mandolese. He got his first NHL game. He got his first NHL win. He's like 4th or 5th all time for most saves in an NHL debut.
Yeah.
The numbers in the AHL don't stand out at all. The numbers in the ECHL were up and down, but we know what kind of gong show that league is and how the shots are coming from everywhere. It's discombobulated. Word of the day,
Yeah.
discombobulated down there in the AHL or ECHL. Do you have a definition of discombobulated for me?
I'm going to say something that's broken apart and mixed up.
There's too many songs and things that are also there. Characterized by confusion or disorder. Yes, I would say that works. Discombobulated down there in the ECHL. But Kevin Mandolese, still really excited to see what's next for him. Now, he is an RFA.
Yeah.
So he needs a new contract. We were joking before, though, Pillsy, with what happened with the Senators last year, using 7 goalies in the NHL and 10 goalies in the AHL. They might just sign 7 or 8 so they don't have to worry about, like Dave Bell was telling us last week, just wondering at lunch who's going to be their goalie tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a smart move. And obviously, Mando is a friend of the show, and we always support him. But Ross, like, you talk about versatility. This is a 3-league guy. He played in the NHL, the AHL, and the ECHL. So this is a guy that can be, like, not only a potential good goalie prospect in the future, but he's a guy that can help out all over the organization right now. And the thing is, he has the size of a great goalie, and he has the maturity and mentality of a goalie that can have success, in my opinion. Every time we talk to him, I think, Ross, after you and I are both left being like, wow, what a great kid. Like, he's got a good head on his shoulders. We talked to his dad, and you can see where he gets that good sense from. So we're always cheering for Mando. And yeah, he showed the Sens, hey, you need me in a pinch in the NHL? I'll give you a good shot to win those games, as he got a couple sample size in the NHL. And that first game he played up against the Islanders was incredible. So I really think that Mando has a bright future ahead of him. Will it be a straight path? Maybe not, but everyone's path is a little bit different. And I honestly think it's a good thing for goalies to spend some time in the ECHL because you're on your own there. I've watched back when Brampton Beast was in town. I went and saw a couple games, and that's when my guy Marcus Hogberg was there.
Who?
And it is was that Nowell I just heard? And it is crazy what the goalies have to deal with because the defense structure is not there. They're making first, second, and third saves often at times. So I think that's a good learning experience, especially he got to experience a bit of a run with the Allen Americans in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I should kind of correct myself. He was unreal in Allen during the regular season, a 927 save percentage. He was 5-1-0. In the playoffs, it ended with a 7th spot, but he still had a shutout in another game, played 9, had a 914 save percentage. Funny enough, his lowest save percentage was in the American League. In the NHL in 3 games, it was a 916. He even gave the Sens a chance to win in Boston on the second half of back-to-back. That was the definition of being thrown to the wolves. He goes out there and played great. The last time he got called up, had to take a cross-country flight, and the team was in complete disarray, and they lose, I think it was 5-2 or 5-3 in Calgary to end the road trip of death that really killed the season for Ottawa. But all in all, what I would say, and to wrap up on Mando, how many former Sens goalies have we seen go on to do great things elsewhere? Even like Joey Decord in the AHL playoffs right now is ridiculous. Guess what? He's 25. Okay, he's 3 years older than Mando. I really think there's something to be said for keeping continuity in the crease and letting these guys grow at their own pace. You have Mads, you have Mando. Look, you've even added Dylan Ferguson into the mix, who also needs a contract, but he's in that same realm, but older. Ferguson's 25. I think people have to remember that Mando here is 22 years old, turning 23 in August. I really hope he's back on a 2-year, two-way contract is my hope for Mando.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that would be best for both parties. And that's the thing. Like, if they don't re-sign Mando, they're just going to be looking for a guy like Mando. So why not stick with the guy you drafted, a guy you've put investments into in developing? And it's a guy that helped you out in all 3 leagues. So I think it's a no-brainer to re-sign him.
All right. Next, we'll get to Max Gannett, who got his first NHL game at the end of the season. And Pilsy, that means he played 100% of the games available to him this season. Played 1 game in the NHL and played all 72 in the American Hockey League. That means, remember they played Thursday on that last game of the season. And then he went down and played Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the American Hockey League. So conditioning is not an issue for this guy, being able to do that. Putting up points ain't an issue either. Look at those numbers.
Yeah, he's had a really good year in Belleville. And I think, honestly, I overlooked him a little bit. I just with all the attention on Lassie, JBD, and then Clevin coming in. And it was easy to overlook Guenette here. But 72 games, 5 goals, 35 assists, 40-point season for a defenseman. You love to see that. And I thought when he came up to the NHL, it was a good reward for him for having a really good season in Belleville and outperforming some of those first-round draft picks I just mentioned. So good on Gannett, and I think there's a lot of potential here.
Most games he's ever played in a season. Before that, it was in the QMJHL, where he also started out really slow and 3 years in exploded and was able to be an offensive presence. 4 years in, was able to become an offensive presence. Whereas here, this is only a second-year pro, and at times last season, because of the depth you mentioned, he was a healthy scratch at times. Still had 19 points in 48 games, but this season really came out. I think he's going to be a top pair defenseman next year in Belleville. And of course, they're going to have, I think the decisions are going to have to be made on JBD and Lassie, whether one is going to be a full-time NHLer, the other probably gets moved away at the draft, potentially. I'd be confident with having Gannett as the top pair defenseman in Belleville. He's 6'3", right shot defenseman. Of course, every team needs right shot and not afraid to get pucks on net. 131 shots on goal is pretty impressive there. And I'm excited to see what's next for Max Gannett. And I really do appreciate that Dorian gave him that game at the end of the season. Just that little taste of what the NHL lifestyle is. And from there, you send him home with the summer and say, look, if you come into camp, just do everything you can to earn a spot full time. But I'm a big fan. He's really grown on me. This is a 7th-round pick, Pilsy, and not a 7th-round pick from like years and years ago, from 2019.
Yep.
So he still has plenty of room to grow. He just turned 22.
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit, honestly, for Gannett here. And I think he's going to be relied upon much more next season in Belleville than he was this season. So keep your eyes out for him, especially like you mentioned, right shot defenseman. That's huge.
And I talked at the start of the show, some of these guys could be looking to take a huge step next year. Don't be surprised, especially with some graduates we'll get to in the top 5, 6. Don't be surprised if he's in the top 10 when we do this after the start of next season. We have graduates and all that. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Max Guenette get that opportunity. All right, coming up next, we've covered Belleville now. It's time to get to the prospects at different levels, whether it's the OHL, we have 2 guys coming up from there, whether it's the Swedish Elite League, whether it's the Swedish Allsvenskan, maybe the SHL now for our boy Pistol Pete. We'll get that all covered next on Locked On Senators. All right, Pilsy, right back to it. We've got the honorable mentions for the Ottawa Senators. Oh my God, did you see? Did you just see breaking news?
No.
Rihanna has just joined the Nico Sparks group. No, I'm just kidding.
I would have believed it.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, hopefully the ownership stuff gets figured out sooner rather than later. But we know that these next prospects will be in the system for a long time. Because since we already covered Belleville, those are the guys who are a little more advanced in their timeline to make it to the National Hockey League. Which way do you want to go from here, Pilsy? Do you want to get the defenseman from the OHL out of the way? Do you want to get to the disher or the guys overseas?
Well, right now I am on Oskar Pettersson's page, so we could go to him if you want.
Pistol Pete, he'll be back on the show.
Absolutely.
Pistol Pete, my guy. And we decided to choose his J20 numbers because they're ridiculous. They're ridiculous, Pilsy. 23 goals in 24 games. Pow, pow.
Yeah, it's crazy what he was able to do. And I think, when he was drafted, we had some hopes that he could bring some offense through what we saw before the draft and all the notes we had collected and video we had seen of him. And, you're like, okay, this kid's got a nice shot. But then he really ramped things up and he got some big national spotlight, getting to play with some of the heavy hitters on the Swedish, I forget what they call that camp.
Sure.
What's the camp where that's how they choose their World Junior team?
Just national training, I'm assuming.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And he got to spend time on a line with Leo Carlson. Like, he was really put in a good spot and he made the best of that opportunity. And I think he's really becoming a name that in Swedish hockey circles, people are having a lot more respect for.
24 games, 23 goals, 10 assists for 33 points, plus 17 and 33 penalty minutes. I believe he had about 20 of them in one moment. He said, some guy tried to jump me. So I said, all right, let's go. So I appreciate that from him. And what else I appreciate is that he's more than just a shooter. He's not a Mike Hoffman or anything like that. And we saw it at the World Juniors. He played a bottom 6 role, but was still able to produce because of his versatility, being able to get in. I noticed he was super hard on the forecheck as well. And that's the type of player that the Senators always pride themselves on drafting. So it's no surprise that that's the type of guy that he ended up being. But I didn't really realize that he had that in his bag of tricks. He also ends up coming out of that tournament with 4 points in 7 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, and a +7 rating. If you go with his entire U20, so all the national program stuff in Sweden, 15 points in 16 games. So I'm really excited to see what the next step is for him. Right now, he's signed with Rogla, which is kind of a middling team right now that does produce high-end talent in the SHL, but he also got loaned out to the Allsvenskan, which is one level below the SHL. I'm curious to know what will be the best play for him, because sitting on the bench doesn't help anyone. Like, I get it that he's able to, chip in now and again, but I don't want to see these ice times like 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Like, to me, it's just better if you're playing more when you're overseas.
Absolutely. But the thing we need to highlight, Ross, is he's one of the very few Swedish or Finnish players that was able to kind of force their team's hand in the upper leagues and keep them on there, because we recently found out there's a minute limit where if you play under that
100. 100
it's
minutes.
100 minutes. If you play under that, they don't have to pay you a high salary or whatever. So most of the time, they just keep these high prospects around just to have them, play them a couple minutes here and there. But they allowed Pettersson to burst through that, and they bumped his pay scale because they were like, this kid can really help us out. And I know we flashed the J20 stats, Ross, but he ended up playing 29 games in the SHL. Now, only in a goal and assist, as you mentioned. A lot of those games are minuscule minutes.
Three of those games, he sat on the bench.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. But to get 29 games, like most of the time, you don't last that long because you're approaching that 99 minutes. So good on him for kind of spending a bunch of time in the Swedish Hockey League.
Yeah, and it's got to be good experience just kind of learning from the vets. So I'm excited. I think he's going to have another big year. He's going to play overseas. We'll get him on to get kind of his mindset. But guys, think Patrick Hornqvist. That's what he said he wants comparable to be. And who doesn't want those types of kind of middle six wingers that can snap in a few goals, can play hard, play on the right side of the puck, play defensively? That's the type of guy you can expect from Oskar Pistol Pete Pettersson. And Pilsy, you know what else is great? This guy still 19. We will see him at this year's World Juniors as well. So really excited.
Yep, that's awesome. The more Sens prospects at World Juniors, the better.
This one would be a very cool one to get to the World Juniors because Swedish prospects are being pumped out left, right, and center. But Filip Nordberg, the mysterious, mythical creature, is one of those players who I think could be a breakout candidate as well. And we got a lot of those in this kind of honorable mention territory. But he's really sort of found a home now as he signed an SHL contract with one of the best teams in the league. The reigning champions of the SHL have added Filip Nordberg. And to me, that's a sure sign that he's going to get some good opportunities to play some serious minutes against men as a 19-year-old. We put up his J20 stats here, though. It's where he played the most last season. 18 games, 3 goals, 8 assists for 11 points, 14 penalty minutes, and was even as well. But Pilsy, this guy has the size, the skating, the shot, all the tools. It's just about molding them into a proper toolbox.
Yep, definitely. And he was the first pick of the draft in that 2022 draft, second round, 64th overall. And yes, 6'5", 212 pounds. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of path Nordberg takes. Right now, I get the sense that he's more of a defensive defenseman type guy. I mean, usually guys with that size on the back end, that's how they play. So it'll be nice to see him playing in the upper leagues over in Sweden because you want to see him use that size to his advantage up against other men rather than kind of in the J20 you're up against smaller guys. You can just bully them. But also, having size is one thing. Can he keep up? Can his feet allow him to be an elite defender and to be playing upwards of 20 minutes a night in those higher competition levels? So Filip Nordberg, definitely someone we don't know a whole lot about, or I'll speak for myself. I don't know a whole lot about him. So the more and more we're going to get to see him, the better it is for Sens fans.
I told him that we're going to see him at Dev Camp. He says he'll be there. He missed last year's Dev Camp, had some scheduling conflicts, but he will be there this year. Like, that just makes him as mythical as it comes, right? You get this guy, your top pick in the draft, and he's not at Dev Camp. Like, come on. We need to see what we're working with here, but I'm excited. Left shot defenseman, big body, was the captain of Södertälje, and I really hope I'm pronounced that right. Sorry, Alex Lindskog will let me know here, but it's the same program that gave us David Rundblad back in the day, and now he's signed with Växjö in the Swedish Hockey League. Again, the champions of the league. So I'm excited to see Filip Nordberg. I've been high on him since the draft. I think that he's got that exciting level, kind of like Tyler Kleven, where it's like some of the scouts kind of didn't see it with him. But when you have that much physical like attributes, you can explode at a moment's notice if you can put them all together, because skating has never been an issue for Filip Nordberg. So I'm really excited to see what's next for Filip Nordberg, and we know it will come in the SHL next season. All right, let's go to another 2022 draft pick, Pilsy. A two-time friend of the show, Stephen Halliday. You said to his face, he's not a disher. How many assists did he get? Tell me. Don't tell me points. Just tell me assists.
32 assists in 40 games.
Which was fourth in the Big Ten behind guys like Logan Cooley, who went fourth overall.
Yes. Again, one of my most famous blunders on this show, which I'm surprised there's not more of circling around the internet. But
You see, Derek Stepan looked good last night.
what's the relevance there? I don't follow.
Yeah, I don't get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. But the thing is, like, this guy has been able to put up such big numbers. Like, I remember when the Sens drafted him, kind of the census was, yeah, 4th round pick, 104th overall. Like, this is a nice player, but people are saying you didn't need to sign, or you didn't need to draft him. Maybe you could have just signed him. But the Sens saw the talent that this guy has, and he's made it look really good for them. Because, like, with the Fighting Saints in the USHL last year, this kid had 95 points in 62 games. And then he comes over and is playing college, and he gets a point per game in his first year at Ohio State. So he's able to just put up points and adapt to whatever league, team, style of hockey he needs to play. And I just think he's going to continue. I don't see any reason why he can't continue to have success.
Pilsy, for the people who are just listening to the show, would you like to name the players who finished with more assists in the Big Ten than Stephen Halliday this year? We've got some heavy hitters.
Yeah, this really shows it. So Logan Cooley, number 1.
4th overall pick.
Luke Hughes, number 2.
4th overall pick.
Adam Fantilli.
About to be 2nd overall pick.
And then our guy, Stephen Halliday. Wow.
And then 3, you have to drop down 3 more. And the next guy, Jimmy Snuggerud, we covered him last year, Minnesota as well, 1st round pick. Yep. So he's right up there contributing with the best of the best in his conference in Big Ten, which is NCHC. Obviously, we're partial, Nodak, but they're right there, 1A, 1B, the best hockey in college. So I'm ecstatic to see him next year. I'm glad he's going back to school. I think another year at Ohio State is going to do him wonders. He knows that the one knock on him, it's always been it's almost like very similar to Igor, except Igor was always a shooter and Halliday's a bit more of a passer. But if he can make sure that he's a step ahead next season in terms of the skating stride, I don't see how the sky's not the limit for this kid. 105 shots on goal in 40 games for him, 9 goals, 41 points in 40 games, plus 7. It is interesting to note that 7 of his 9 goals came on the power play, so we'll look to see some more even strength production from him next year. I'm ecstatic to see him at Dev Camp. The second time we interviewed him, like, as comfortable as I've ever seen a kid that age, super outgoing, and you can tell just absolutely loves the game, wants to do great things. Can't wait to see what's next for Stephen Halliday. And man, this is the type of guy who after next season in the with Ohio State, I could see him jumping into Belleville and not even touching the bottom 6, just being a top 6 guy right away and then working his way from there.
Agreed. And something we always talk to him about, Ross, is he loves playing tennis too. So that's going to help with his footwork, his hand-eye coordination. So some of these multi-sport athletes, you get to see different things. Like Shane Pinto, great baseball player. That's helped his hand-eye coordination, tipping pucks in front of the net. So I think that's a good thing to add to his tool bag there.
We're super excited for the future of Stephen Halliday with the Ottawa Senators, but next year with the Ohio State Buckeyes. All right, Pilsy, we're actually just going to carry this through with all 2022 draft picks. We just did Nordberg, we just did Stephen Halliday, and now we're moving on to the OHL, where 2 players were drafted 2 rounds apart, but you wouldn't know it based on the stat lines that these 2 put up. Let's start with the 3rd round pick, Tomas Hamara, and this was, I would say, a disappointing year. Maybe not so much for Hamara individually, and we'll get to why, but for the Kitchener Rangers in general. They kind of loaded up, per se, going into the season. They had some guys come up from the States. They had, obviously, Hamara come over from Czechia, and it just did not work. I mean, they barely squeaked into the playoffs. They made it a little bit interesting by getting out of the first round, but then just got smoked in the second round of the playoffs. The games against London, did you see these, the scores?
No.
Okay, so they lost the first 2 games on the road, 5-1 and 8-4. Okay, they come home, they get a 6-1 win. You're like, okay, you're not in trouble till you lose at home, right?
That's a good barn. Yeah, you get a big advantage at the odd.
Yeah, the last 2 games of the series, the team scored 0 goals.
Yeah, Ross, I'm not going to lie. I'm a Hamara guy, and obviously he's a Sens prospect, but I take great pleasure in watching the Kitchener Rangers fail as a Guelph Storm guy. That's like, honestly, it's like It's like the Leaf Sens comparison. They're right close, but Kitchener has all this history, and anyone in the area, you grew up a Kitchener Rangers fan, and etc. So I like watching the Kitchener Rangers fail.
Well, with Hamara, there was certainly a plus-minus issue, but with the point totals, you look at 17 points in 56 games, 2 goals. Now, I will say there's certainly an adjustment period coming over from Finland where he was playing before, right? And I said Czechia, that's obviously where he's from, but he'd been playing U20 in Liga, the same league that we had talked about Filip Nordberg having success in this year and being excited about that. So you do have to take that into account, that he's in a new country, learning the new customs and this and that. There's just so much off the ice that we're not even made aware of when it comes to fitting in. He got the contract from the Sens after development camp. So from that standpoint, he's secure in the organization. 3 years whenever it starts. Obviously, if he goes back to the OHL next year, it won't start, and that's what I believe he will do. But I'd like to see more production from him next year at the OHL level. I would say that the next final prospect we're going to cover in today's show probably took 2 steps ahead of Hamara based on their seasons that were.
I would agree. And Ross, the big thing, I didn't watch a lot of Kitchener Rangers games, but I was definitely glued onto Hamara in the World Juniors. The big thing for me is he's got to watch those turnovers. I mean, there was 3-4 brutal turnovers in his own zone, and 2 of those ended up in the back of his own net. And I know he's a smaller, young defenseman, kind of a little bit like Branny, right? When Branny was first starting, like he's got the hands, he's got the speed, he's a guy you want to break up the puck up the ice, but you got to be responsible. Like, sure, you can take those risky plays to try to set up transition, but when it's ending up going the wrong way that often, and it was tough to see those turnovers, that's something he's really got to work on. But, I mean, every young defenseman is going to go through those struggles.
And young is the key word. He won't turn 20 until March of next year. So he's 19 years old, just turned 19. And again, I can't overstate how important like being comfortable in your surroundings are. So hopefully with a full year under his belt, knowing where, the grocery store is or how to get this, how to get that, and being able to be more comfortable, that he takes another step forward, because I think it's fair to say it was probably disappointing for him too, the way that this season went, but hopefully it's on the up and up. This was the guy who all the, public scouting sphere just was drooling over. They were saying that he should have gone second round and that Hamara should have gone, that Nordberg should have gone third round or fourth round, whatever it was. So from that standpoint, it's interesting, but you do see the potential in the puck moving defenseman. Yep. The prototype of what he can be isn't hard to notice, but you need to see the physical evidence of it game after game. So Tomas Hamara, we expect will be back with the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL next season, and we're looking to see some I hope he's the type of guy I need to see him dominate at Dev Camp. Like, he should be one of the best players on the ice at Dev Camp. Do you not think that's too much to ask?
Yeah, I think it might be too much to ask just because he's so young and undersized. Like, the guys he's going to be playing up against at Dev Camp are going to be a lot bigger and stronger than him. But, yeah, third round pick. I was one of those people, Ross, after last draft. That was the guy I circled and thinking, wow, they got good value here. So I still have a lot of hope for Hamara, and I think we're going to see a big improvement this season.
The final prospect we're going to get to today on our honorable mentions before next week's top 10. Monday, we'll do 10 through 6, and on Tuesday, we will do the top 5. Of course, this is subject to any changes based on ownership news for the Ottawa Senators, but we expect to do Monday, 6 through 10, and then top 5 on Tuesday. Pilsy, Jorian Donovan. This guy's got a dog in him. We saw the fight highlights. This guy can throw him. His old man
dog in him
made a career out of being able to be a tough customer. But unlike his dad, Sean, Jorian is a left shot defenseman. He's 6'3". He's got the size. He's got the reach. And this year, he decided he was going to put the points up as well. 55 games and 45 points.
Yeah, it was an incredible year for Jorian Donovan. And I think this is the guy, at least as of now, that you're looking at this draft being like, there's the real value pick. I mean, he slid all the way down.
Fifth round,
136th overall. Left shot, 6'1", 800 183 pounds. So he's not in the 800s. But this is a guy that kind of really progressed over the season. And I think it's important to know, too, that the Senators made it very clear that this wasn't your typical family friend favor that just because Dono works for the Sens, we're like, yeah, we'll help you out. We'll pick your kid. I think this is the style of player that the Ottawa Senators scouting team typically goes after, and they're able to find good talent in. And I think they hit a home run with this, at least so far from what we've seen. So I think fans are very excited about Donovan, as they should be.
126 shots on goal in 55 games stood out to me, man. Like, that's the type of defenseman that you want to have on your team, right? Especially if you're a forward. You do all the work to get in the zone. Puck comes to the back. And this is something, I mean, not to make it about how the Leafs failed in the second round, but it felt like they cared so much about getting these defensive defensemen that when they had control in the offensive zone, plays would die when they cycled it up to the top, or they would have to fumble it. They would lose it. Whereas the perfect play when you're trying to continue and snap it around in the offensive zone, get pucks on net and just collapse into the goal. That's what Donovan brings. Like, he's looking at 2.5 shots a game, Pilsy, as a defenseman. I think that in itself tells you what you need to know. 51 penalty minutes we mentioned. Just search up his fight. Like, I know there's not much fighting in junior hockey. He ragdolled this kid. It was pretty impressive to see. Now, with a successful team like the Bulldogs, you want to see that plus minus probably a little bit better, but just based on what I've heard, and Meth was covering a lot of OHL games this year, and he said that, man, this Donovan kid, he noticed him when he's out there. He's big body, like you mentioned as well, and I think that he's going to take a little bit more time. We saw him get his feet wet with a little stint in the AHL at the end of the season. Played 2 games. The last game of the year was a gong show for a million reasons, but he was dashed 3 in that game. But overall, I think that it's going to be a slow and steady process with Jorian Donovan. But man, next year, you got to think, like, I feel like kids are at such a big advantage when they come into a program that's competing for the Memorial Cup. Like, they made it to the final in the OHL, if not the Memorial Cup. Yeah, they won the OHL. They made it to Memorial Cup in his 17-year-old season, right? Yep. So he's around the Mason McTavishes and the guys who are going on and showing the work ethic for these kids. And now next year is his year. I hope there's a letter on his chest, and I hope he's the leader of the team, both emotionally, physically, and offensively from the back end. I have high expectations for him long term, but it all starts with his next season.
Yep, agreed. And this is a local guy. Like, he played for the Canada Lasers, the Carleton Place Canadians before.
You know who else played for the Canada Lasers?
You?
Mark Mathot.
Oh, Mark Mathot. Nice. Yeah, so this is a local guy. That must have been awesome to be drafted by the Ottawa Senators, the team your dad played on, works for. You're in the area. So I think he's going to have a lot of, a lot of things to strive for. And he's looking like a pretty good prospect and a good find in the 5th round.
All right, Pilsy. So we've covered 8 different prospects today. If I had to put you on the spot and say just one of them you had to pick that will have the best pro career, you know what? I'm going to say out of 7, because we said Angus is in a bit different position. Out of the other 7, who would you put your shekels on to have the best pro career?
I mean, that's tough because these guys are all in the early stages. You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to go with Max Guenette.
Okay.
He already showed a big season in Belleville. He got a taste of the NHL. He's a right shot defenseman that can put up points. He is a good size. Like, I think the future is very bright for Gannett.
All right, I'll go with Stephen Halliday. I just think that the profile is there, the hand's there. He obviously thinks the game at a high level, and I think if he just continues to work on that skating stride, he'll be all money going forward. Get that NIL deal for Stephen Halliday next season at Ohio State. But we're obviously rooting for him and rooting for them, and we're excited. Next week, hopefully we find out who the heck is going to go in the Ottawa Senators. I really do think the people of Ottawa deserve better than this. Has deteriorated into a debacle. It really has. Yeah. Like, there's just been too many different nuggets here and there in this trail, and it's been going on for 200 days. I think initially, and I've been asked by a few people in the DMs, like, why are you annoyed now? You weren't annoyed when Ryan Reynolds said he was interested. Well, I think what happened with Ryan Reynolds, one, it was early in the process, so everyone was just kind of like excited that somebody cared about the Ottawa Senators. Yeah. But not only that, it's the sports background and that people could relate to. They had just seen Welcome to Wrexham, and they're like, I want this for me. I want this for me. Oh, he has a bit of a local tie. I want this for me. He is Ottawa. This, like, there was just a connection, it felt like. But now we're just hearing, like, everybody's involved with, and we know the Sparks bit, but not only that, the Weekend attached himself to the Kimmel group. Like, it's just gotten to a point where it's like, it's a measuring stick, right? Like, who's got the richer friends, who's got the bigger friends, all that. And I just think the people in Ottawa, they just want what's best for the Ottawa Senators. And it's unfortunate that it's taken all these twists and turns. But at the end of the day, when we find out, it's going to be the best owner the Sens have ever had. So I think that's kind of, at the end of the day, what we can appreciate with all this.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. Like, I'm getting... we should be excited about all this stuff, but I'm getting kind of not annoyed with it, but it's tired. It's tiring at this point, and I don't have much more to add, because it's just like, oh, okay, another person being added, and
Oh my God,
who is it now?
Magic Johnson.
Nice.
We talked about, like, Mark Mathot was offered. We've heard gong shows involved, oil change, like so many, like all the, and we want local companies involved. So don't get me wrong. I just, like, enough of the rumors, enough of the backdoor whispers. Let's just open it up. I need to see a documentary of all this from behind the scenes.
Yeah, we need it, and that's why we would have loved the Ryan Reynolds bid.
Yeah, 100%.
We probably would have got that.
Yeah, exactly. But now we're waiting. We will know hopefully next week. And whenever we do, it's emergency podcast, of course. It will be as soon as humanly possible. Maybe we said we would go live at times this summer, Pilsy. That could be a moment where we just go on with absolutely no prep done, and we just vibe with the people.
Yeah.
And vent about the process and vibe with the fact that no matter which one of these 4 bids wins, it's safe to assume it will be the best ownership the Ottawa Senators have ever had.
Well, and it's new ownership coming in. You can't come in at a better time if you're trying to own a hockey team for the Ottawa Senators. Like, the dark days are over. The core is locked in. The supporting role pieces are locked in. There's just a couple extra pieces you need. And they're going to have the ultimate piece to owning a sports team: the ability to build a brand new arena the way they want, where they want, how much they want, when they want, all those things. So very exciting.
Pilsy, final thoughts as we go into May 2-4 weekend?
Final thoughts for me is everyone just have a good time this weekend. The weather's finally getting better. It's a long weekend. Hopefully everyone's getting the long weekend off work. We'll be here Monday, but yeah, just enjoy yourselves. Don't worry too much about the Sens ownership. What happens is what's going to happen. Don't get too wrapped up in all this.
My final thoughts from me is getting a thought from you. Kyle Dubas out as GM of the Leafs.
Yeah, I saw this coming. The way his press conference was,
You don't come back from that.
No, and I think people really do underestimate. I know everyone talks about the Toronto media, etc., but people underestimate the pressure you are under in that position, especially when, they don't perform the way they need to and don't have the success they need to. So honestly, I don't blame Dubas for this. I think it's good for him and his family just to chill and take a second to step back.
And we know Scott Wheeler. It's almost Scott Wheeler time on Locked On Senators. That time with the draft coming up. I thought this was hilarious. Oh, I got to center this out a little bit. A passing thought, not supported by anything. Kyle Dubas taking some time away and then becoming the new GM of the Senators under new ownership would be something. Appropriately, it would be the most WWE outcome for him. Now, we're not those Sens fans who have been like clamoring over Kyle Dubas and saying they need to bring Kyle Dubas to the Senators. I understand the argument to be made. That's fine. I think a lot of that stems from being done with Dorion. I'm personally not. I gave him an A- for what he's done over the last year, but I do think this would be a hilarious, like, if he gets further with the Senators in year 1 or 2 than he ever did with the Leafs, would be a very comical storyline. And Kyle, I don't know why you unfollowed us on Twitter, but now that you're officially away from the Leafs, feel free to hit that follow button. We know you love the Sens, buddy.
And bring Spezza with you. If he comes, bring Spezza home.
All right. That's enough Leaf talk for the long weekend. Reminder, if you missed any of Locked On Senators, go check out this week's episodes with Mark Mathot, head coach of the Belleville Senators, Dave Bell, and we even finished our organizational value rankings this week. Lots of content coming next week and beyond.
Our exit interviews, Ross, the organizational value rankings, that's coming up later this summer.
Ooh, a little forward tease. We'll save that for the dead heat of summer. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.